My conversation with Hugh Huffaker was a reminder about what life and careers can look like when we are genuinely who we are and when we approach our time on the planet without the label-making machine and just explore the many facets of our lives. Underneath Hugh's laid-back persona is a quiet and inquisitive strength that we can all learn from. Hugh, thank you for highlighting for us that we have to keep an open mind wherever we go, that keeping an open heart is how life can take us on unplanned journeys and how we must follow our passions. Hello, and welcome to another installment of At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a platform where we will learn from people who come from different walks of life, careers, and experiences, but all share one thing in common. They have stepped fully into the transformative power of saying yes to the unexpected turns of their lives, and they are now using the power of their voice, or podium, to make an impact on the world we live in today. At the Podium is the intersection of art, culture, and big thoughts wrapped up in good old-fashioned conversation. Today, I'm thrilled and humbled to share the podium with Hugh Huffaker. Hugh Huffaker is the founder and mastermind of a spa CBD product line called Cosmetic, which was ranked in 2020 as top CBD skincare brand of 2020 by Organic Spa magazine. Cosmetic also holds patents in its microencapsulation process for increasing the solubility of CBD through the skin. Hugh is also the founder of a cleaning and disinfectant line called Clean Republic, which is registered with the EPA to kill COVID and was awarded the lowest rating of toxicity available for an EPA hospital-grade disinfectant. And if he wasn't busy enough running two brands, he also owns his own spa in the beautiful mountain town of Buena Vista, Colorado. A serial entrepreneur and inventor who lives in Boulder, Colorado with his wife, Thompsy, Hugh is an avid rock climber, outdoorsman, and jazz musician who has made environmentally responsible and healthy products a way of life. Hugh, welcome to At the Podium.
Thanks, Patrick. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited to do this with you.
Thank you so much, Hugh. Now, Hugh, after all you've done, you're literally the modern day Renaissance man.
I don't know if I do anything really well, but it's about trying, right?
I think you're doing quite well. You really started in the CBD space. So I want you to clear it up for everybody because CBD is a hot topic. Why does it work? Are there long-term effects of using CBD that we don't see right now? And what is the difference between CBD and marijuana?
I sort of stumbled into this industry just a little bit. I used to always get in trouble with my parents in high school for smoking pot. I grew up in Tennessee, a pretty conservative home. And, it's funny because I definitely got busted a lot in high school for that. And then years down the road, my mom got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She didn't have the really fast acting kind. She had the kind that just started to slowly degrade away. The worst part for her were these leg spasms that she had every night around 5 or 6 o'clock every night. And so she was on all these muscle relaxers. They weren't working, one. And then two, it was changing my mom's personality to where she just seemed to be out of it a little bit. And it was just really weird for my little brother or sister and I to see that. And so I'm an avid reader. I was just going online and reading as much as I could on all sorts of alternative treatments. And one thing that had kind of popped up, and at the time it wasn't very much in the forefront, was the endocannabinoid system's interaction with multiple sclerosis. The endocannabinoid system is a system of your body, but everyone has heard of CBD, but it's what CBD binds to when it's taken into the body. And so I thought, I wonder if this could help out at all. I went out and bought all of the CBD topicals I could, because my mom was, she was so conservative. She wouldn't even think about like ingesting anything. And for some reason, the topicals felt a little less intrusive for her, and they didn't work at all. And I finally talked my mom into trying a tincture, which is just an ingestible. And it actually started to suppress the spasms almost immediately. And at that point, I thought, wow, this is really crazy how fast this worked. And two, why didn't the topical work? And that's sort of how I just kind of stumbled my way into the industry. I didn't really have any plans on going into the CBD industry at all. But like you said in the introduction, that I really love and I've always tried to live my life by is, saying the word yes and keeping an open heart. And if you do that, then it's really crazy where life will take you. Have you ever seen Yes Theory on YouTube before?
No, tell me about it.
So Yes Theory is these guys who are around my age. They decided to just say yes to everything. And so things that you think were not possible, they're like, let's go out and try this. And, I think a good example would be they just dial random phone numbers and someone picks up the phone and they're like, hi, we'd love to travel to wherever you are and come meet you and hang out with you for a day. Or things like, one guy had never skydived before and he did a halo jump. Someone had never learned how to backflip and he learned how to backflip. And so their whole thing is just them saying yes to life. And I think it's just really awesome because so many people are scared of failure. They just don't keep an open heart to go out, have new experiences, meet new people. And, that's what really guides my life is just kind of being a little gypsy and jumping around in that sense. And I know I didn't even answer your question of the difference between CBD and hemp. So I can answer, or CBD and THC, but hemp is legal in all 50 states. It used to be the number one cash crop in the United States until it was banned. I think it was the 1920s or 1930s by some really bad propaganda. And so THC and marijuana is slightly different than hemp. That's illegal unless you're in Colorado or a few other states. And then, hemp is where you extract a lot of CBD from. So it's legal, and hemp sort of is paving the way to national legalization of cannabis. I think a lot of people are getting a lot of really huge benefits from hemp and really starting to question, why were these plants made illegal in the first place?
I'm actually really touched by the story of your mom, because I think when something happens to your mom, it gets you to the core. What had you imagined your life to be like before you were on this quest to find help and relief for your mom's spasms?
When I went to college, I thought I wanted to get a degree in jazz guitar. So, went to school for music at the University of Tennessee. And I remember just kind of like panicking one day of what am I going to do with a degree in jazz guitar? Like, I'm still not sure of what I would have done. And so I went out and met this guy who's like a successful businessman, and, asking him if he would be my mentor. He would say, what do you want to do? And I'd say, I don't know. I know I want to work for myself and create, regardless of what that is. I need to be able to use both sides of my brain. And so he kind of told me something crazy and goes, you should get a degree in accounting and go work for a CPA firm, one of the big CPA firms, for a little while to cut your teeth. Because most creatives who become entrepreneurs, they have that passion, they've got the vision, but they just don't understand the inner workings of the business. And so it's some of the best advice I've ever gotten, best and worst, I guess. And so I got a degree in accounting and actually worked for one of the really large CPA firms. If you can imagine me working at a CPA firm, it was really hard. They kind of work you to the bone when you're right out of school, but it was a really good experience. And so, after cutting my teeth, I just started trying things. We built an app that was for the alcohol industry and had some success with that, and I was able to sell that and make a little bit of money to position myself to start another company. I just knew I needed to be an entrepreneur. And like we were just talking about, you just sort of have to listen and you have to figure out a problem, identify the problem. After you identify it, you just figure out how you can solve that issue. That's essentially what I just keep an open mind everywhere I go to think, hey, is this a problem? Do I need to, is there something I can do about this?
Cosmetic is incredibly successful. You stepped into a very insular world of the spa industry, and you've busted open those doors and they've really embraced the products that you offer. What is that? Is that the passion? Is that what is that piece that really helped you penetrate a really, it's not an easy world to get into, and you've done it so beautifully.
It was really weird. Like the first time that you and I met, I spent like a year and a half or 2 years. We were working on different formulations. I was trying to learn about the spa industry. And so I would like walk into spas and try to like make friends with people, not to sell them anything, but just to find out about the spa industry. You and I met at, I think it was my second spa convention I'd ever been to. We went to the spa conventions and I was like, I'm just going to see what happens. Really, I didn't really have a ton of experience at all. It was really nerve-wracking just to go. A lot of people in the spa industry have like come from skincare or they come from spa. I wasn't really that way. So I was just thinking, I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to try to be anybody else or try to emulate any other company that's out there. And I think people appreciate when they can tell that you're being genuine, putting yourself out there, even if I'm not maybe your classic skincare guy that you see. And I think people really took to that. And the really beautiful thing about the spa industry that I didn't even realize when we were getting into it is just the level of care that people actually have for keeping their staff safe or for helping their customers is unbelievable. And just trying to help the environment. And I think that all of our ideals just really aligned with the spa industry. I just got really lucky to find a place where I feel like I really fit in with the culture. I think that's a huge part of, being able to get in. I was still a newbie when we met. I mean, what did anything stand out for you or, from your perspective?
I remember meeting you and I remember walking into the event. And I was like, why are all these women standing around that table over there? I've never seen spa directors so excited to see somebody standing at a booth. I got to find out what's going on. Everybody's very excited right now. And having spent time with you over the years, that's a general reaction that I've seen people have to you, that you really have that ability to pull people into you, which is a gift.
Well, what people said, you came up to my table and it was really funny. And I remember you left and I was talking to the person next to me, the vendor, and I was like, oh man, Patrick was really cool. What a nice guy. And he was like, that's Patrick Huey, right? I don't know Patrick Huey. And they're like, he's the man in spa. And I was like, oh, I need to remember that name. Even though you are like one of like the top, most well-known people in spa, and like didn't judge me because we had a lot of issues in cosmetic when we first launched. Like the brand didn't look that great. The product line was pretty small, and like you were still really, really nice and outgoing to me. And so, I've always really appreciated that when people are like that.
Well, I thought the product was quality. And I remember saying to you, we'll bring it in once you change your packaging, which we did do to the properties that I oversee. I think you had that spark that really drew people in because it was different. It had magic dust. But the magic dust isn't just magic dust. You went to school, you got a CPA degree, you worked at a firm. It wasn't just like poof, you showed up and all of a sudden all these great things happened. You really put in the grunt work to get there.
It's a learning process when you start a company. My first company, we made lots of mistakes and it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. It's just like taking those experiences and, really learning from it, I think. And partnering up with really good people too. Cause I'm kind of like the outgoing guy who's going to try to make friends with everybody. And so partnering up with someone who's got a PhD in biochemistry to, make sure that the product works as good as possible. So you've got like kind of like the love on one side and the science on the other side. And so, the best restaurants you go to, there's a lot of love put into everything. And so I think we sort of put that same love into the product while still having the good science base in all of our products.
In your first company, you made some mistakes. What were those mistakes that you made that when you got into cosmetic, you were able to sort of learn from and pivot in a new direction?
I think aside from like the day-to-day things, like just learning about how to, benefits and, all of the stuff that comes from like having employees and being able to manage people and keeping employees happy. That's a huge learning process. But I'd say the biggest thing was we took money. We took on investment really early in my first company. All of a sudden, I felt like I wasn't working for myself anymore. And, you kind of feel like you're working for the man. And that's pulled the creativity out for me. And so for round 2 with cosmetic, I said, we're going to do this grassroots. Let's build it slow and build it right and let it grow on its own and only have the main people as the investors. For the first few months, we were shipping out of this like tiny shipping container, and I was shipping out of my house sometimes. And so I was doing sales, I was doing shipping, I was doing customer service. And I think that was just a really great way to build a company, because you don't want to grow too fast. Like, look what happened to WeWork. You get all of this money and you have all this money to spend. A lot of times you just spend it frivolously and you don't really think about the things that do matter for the company. We only put money where we really needed to, like on product development, to make sure the product was good. And then everything else was just pure hustle. So learned how to sell the product, learn the industry. And one thing I forget who told me this in the spa industry, but it might've been like Boldajar. He said, he probably doesn't even remember this, because I just kind of walked up to him and was like, "Hi, Boldajar, I've heard of you." And he said, he's like, "Me and my brother, we were driving around the US together, sleeping in the same bed in a hotel room for the first 3 years of our brand. And you need to meet everybody. When people think of cosmetic, they're going to think of you before you send any salespeople out. And then when you think of Eminence, you think of Boldajar."
Yes.
So I took it to heart and was just a road warrior for 2.5 years, where I was traveling 4 or 5 days every week.
When could you take a breath and say, okay, we're here? How did you know that moment had come for you?
I would say the first moment, there's been a couple of like really big moments for us. I would say the biggest one was after our first spa show. We actually picked up 5 spas after the show. They weren't the exact caliber of spa, they're like some smaller day spas, but I thought we have a little bit of proof of concept just with like those small wins for us. That was just really, really awesome. And then we were selling online, and our pain cream just started just flying off the shelves. And then all of these reviews started coming in from people saying, "My grandma has neuropathy," or, arthritis, or "I was in a car crash. This is literally the only CBD product that's ever helped me." And that's when we knew that the pain cream was something really special. We spent a lot of time on it, and that's the pain. We really built the company on pain cream, and now we have some really great other products as well. But even after all this time, people still just freak out about the pain cream. And that's sort of when I knew we were onto something. And there's been some luxury spas that I never thought that we would be able to get into, such as, Montage. And so for me, getting into the Montage was just a huge, people would go, "Oh my gosh, you're in Montage." Like we've tried to get in Montage for a decade. And so there's like these wins that you have in your business that you just have to latch onto, because there's so much stress in the day-to-day just growing a business that, you've got to just really hold on to those good days and stay positive.
You were so successful in cosmetic. Your timeline was incredibly quick. So I've seen lots of lines come and go, and most don't have the success that you've had, sustaining that success as well. And then while that is going gangbusters, you introduce Clean Republic, which has had incredible ratings from the EPA.
Yeah, that was something where it was keep your heart open, really. And it's a really, really weird story how this happened. And everyone thought I was insane. Like my parents thought I was crazy. All my friends thought I was crazy. I met this guy trail running, and we were just kind of talking. We both had our dogs with us. We were like throwing our sticks in the water for the dogs. He asked me what I did, and I told him, and I'd mentioned that we had invested in a farm in Tennessee for growing hemp. He was like, "Oh, that's cool." let's grab a coffee sometime. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? And so we grabbed a coffee, and he asked me if I'd ever had powdery mildew on the plants. And I said, yeah, absolutely. In Tennessee, you get powdery mildew. There's not a good way to get rid of powdery mildew. It's without using really toxic chemicals. And he goes, well, there's this stuff called hypochlorous acid that I think could be a really powerful oxidizer for plants. And I said, all right, that sounds really interesting. He goes, it's made with only water, salt, and electricity. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm really interested. And he goes, and it's made by your immune system. So the white blood cells actually produce it. It's an infection fighting compound. And so, I said, this really fits in with the whole cosmetic thing going on. So yeah, let's give it a try. And so 2 weeks later, I was business partners with a guy I just met who has since come to be my best friend. Everyone thought I was insane going into like an ag pesticide. And so we spray it on the plants, and then boom, powdery mildew just gone. Like it just evaporates off the plant. And not only that, but the plants started growing bigger because it was creating an immune system response in the plants. We started a company called Plant Aid together for the agriculture industry. And so we sell to the wine industry, citrus, cannabis, tomato, like we touch a lot of different industries. And while this was happening, we started sending it to a lab to test it out for, what else can this do? And it came back about 200 times stronger than bleach at killing, viruses and bacteria. But yet at the same time, it's made with water, salt, and electricity. Like here's a little sample size of this. And if you do that with bleach, you're going to be in a world of pain. I start talking to spa directors, and I'm like, hey, what are you using to clean? And they're all using quaternary ammonium, which is horrendous for the environment. I mean, this stuff is what's in most disinfectants is quaternary ammonium. And so I thought, why are spas using this? And when I go to a spa, or like, I'm sure when someone comes to you with the skincare line, you probably look at the ingredients, right? Like very carefully. And spas are like, what's this? But yet at the same time, we're spraying these chemicals with our employees around all day. And so we went out and got an EPA registration as a disinfectant, which took a very long time. It was a ton of effort. And 2 months later, COVID hit. So timing was just really fortunate. I mean, we thought this was just going to be a product that we would sell to spa and hospitality, within a month or two after really launching. We were selling to the NFL. We were selling to these like Fortune 100 companies because they saw the writing on the wall of this is going to be really dangerous for us to be disinfecting unless we use a product that, we can feel comfortable around, because there's a real risk of injury if we're going to use these products. And I think the timing was just right, and we got really lucky, but luck was a big part of it. But I also think it's about, keeping your heart open. And I just had this feeling it all made sense. And being a business partner with a stranger in 2 weeks isn't the greatest idea, but sometimes you just have to try it, I think. See what happens, learn from it.
If a person is graduating from college, and here you are, a very successful business person, you're running your own businesses, and you also run your own spa, which I was like, you has gone insane.
I know, it's out of control.
So what would you say to a person?
I would say, don't be afraid of failure. I know that's sort of cliche, but all of us fail, and you're going to think that like your friends think you're like an idiot for failing or starting a stupid business, or your family is disappointed. Everybody questions everything when you start a business. Everyone's like, that doesn't look good. Or like, you're going to get questioned and you're going to fail, but the failure is good because you're going to keep learning. And so you're only young once. And so if you're coming out of school, maybe try to get a little bit of real life experience, or get a really good mentor as well who's had that experience. And if you feel passionate about something, then give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? You might fail. You just get yourself back up and learn from it, and then come back even stronger. And if you think people are going to be laughing at you for failing, it's actually not true. Whenever you talk to someone, let's say they're in like the cubicle life, they'll say, I've always wanted to start something. It's just amazing how many people come up to you and tell you, I've always wanted to start something, but I can't. Like, I've got a wife, I've got a kid. They can't take that risk. But I think you can always go out and take that risk. Or you can do the millennial hustle too. You can just work nights and, try to get that hustle going on. If you work hard, if you're passionate about it, and don't be like the shady salesman who just says what people want to hear, or be the person you think people want you to be, be the quirky, eccentric guy. As long as you're real with people, I think people respond to that.
It's amazing. Last question. Who has been that mentor in your life that you really can point to and say, this person did me one solid?
Tim Ferriss, he wrote a few books, but my favorite book is he wrote this book called A Tribe of Mentors. He has a podcast where he just interviews really high performing individuals, pro athletes or business people, philanthropists, like anyone who's just performing at a high level. He just goes and interviews them. But the thing that really interests me is the way that he interviews people. It's really unique. He'll be like, what do you do in the morning? Do you write a to-do list? Do you start out your day with doing the hardest thing or the easiest thing so you can check it off the box? He just has this massive book of really successful people and their rituals. And when you read the book, you start to see all of these patterns pop up that can make your life a lot easier. I noticed that people are, using cold water therapy a lot. I went and learned like the Wim Hof method and started using like cold showers and cold water therapy. A lot of people are doing intermittent fasting, keeping carbs down really low. I tried that out and my body responded to it really amazing. And my energy levels are through the roof all day. And so I think it's like little things like that is, reading what other people are doing and then go out and test it and see if it works for you. It's not like everything's not going to work for everybody, but there's some things as humans that, we're all going to be able to relate to. Like, what about you? Do you have a morning routine, or do you have anything that you live by for you to be successful?
I read a lot.
Yeah.
When I read anything, I'm reading a book now called Inclusify about how to create a diverse work environment. I read Becoming by Michelle Obama. I love to read because I think, A, it improves your vocabulary. It also makes you a better writer to read. And I think writing is a lost skill and a very important one because one must be able to articulate what they want to articulate in the specific kind of way they want to articulate it. And I do try to get in the 10,000 steps a day. And it clears my mind. It saved me through COVID. I was walking 15,000 steps a day during COVID. I think those kinds of things are really important.
It's interesting you say reading, because when I was reading that Tim Ferriss book, that is a pattern that you see emerge with almost all of these guys. Some read a book a day, which is insane. Like, these guys are CEOs of Fortune 100 companies, but they find time to read a book every day or every other day. That is wild to think about. Like, you wouldn't ever think that they would have time for that, but it trains your minds to not be so, hyperactive and respond to all of this, like, everything, your phone's going on everywhere. Like, we're such ADD people now. And yeah. I am guilty of that as well. So reading is really important, I think. And I've tried to read more over the past few years as well. And it helps me out.
You showed up with a love of the outdoors and an entrepreneurship. I showed up with a love of books. My mom says I read books when I was 3, which I don't recall that, but she says it.
I remember us going out to lunch in California and we were talking about saxophone. This was pre-COVID and you were telling me you really wanted to like start playing sax again. I haven't picked it up in a while. And then obviously anybody who follows you on Instagram over the past year has seen like your sax playing just get really phenomenal, like with the tone and everything like that. Have you found that playing music has been a really nice outlet too?
It really has been. And I've actually started taking lessons with this guy who lives in New York. He works at NYU. It's been amazing to be a student again. And I think that's important for people to become a student again, because you sort of see where those adhesion points are to your success. So for me, playing the sax again, it's been very sort of therapeutic and healing and all of that. But also I've really learned, and what you said really resonates to me, is I'm afraid to fail. So when I'm playing for my teacher, I don't want to play unless every note, every run is as perfect as I can make it. And what he's working with me on is it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it's perfect or not perfect, it doesn't matter. Just play. And so now we're doing exercises where he'll say, you're going to play in the key of G. And for the next 5 minutes, I want you just to play the notes within the key of G.
Yeah.
I start sweating bullets because Where's the music? Where's the guideline? And he's like, just play, which kind of what you've been alluding to. Just don't be afraid to fail. No one's going to die.
I remember my first jazz gig that I had, it actually ended up being a pretty big gig because we were opening up for someone who was pretty well known, this German guitarist. And we sort of finagled our way into opening up because I just like reached out and I was like, hey, we really want to open up for you. And I was walking out when I had some sheet music in my hand in front of the crowd. It was probably like 200 people. And I had the binder turned upside down and all of my sheet music fell out in front of everyone, like literally just everywhere. And the whole crowd was laughing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But, the gig ended up going really well. And, I felt so good after it. I think the thing I like about music is, when college ends, we sort of stop learning. And I feel like learning is an art. And our brain will lose the ability to learn if you don't keep it exercised, really. That's the great thing about music for me is, I'm constantly learning, is keeping my brain with that. Because, we don't have to study for tests anymore. We don't have to like really learn. And so, that's music is my way to keep learning. And it really is.
Thank you so much for your time today and for just your willingness to play here at the podium.
Can I plug my jazz Instagram account? If you want to hear any jazz, at Gypsy Jazz Denver. That's the Instagram account. So.
I follow you there, by the way.
Thanks.
And remember, we all have a voice, so use yours wisely. Thank you, everyone.